How's it going? So, I wanted to do a comparison analysis of the current build setup that I've been running, and we just had someone named Vash Cowaii do a great in-depth analysis recently. So I thought it'd be interesting to compare what he says um, in his videos and then compare it to see how the skill trees hold up. So a lot of these um, current talent setup points were actually validated by some of his things that he said. And if you don't know him, this is Vash Cowaii. This is his YouTube. This is a really, really great information section. So I guess first is Benny Gesserit.
I took control, went solo, and built my own online knife empire.
Okie dokie. So if you've been playing Dune Awakening...
All right. So now first, let's look at what the spells that we're using from Benny Gesserit. Now, in my original build, I went up here. The reason that I ended up deslotting this is I was running duos with my brother, and this screech actually affects your party members. It'll stagger your party members, and so I was thinking of ways I could deslot this just for testing purposes. Now, this is still really, I mean, pretty much everything in the voice is the strongest CC in the game, so you're going to have a good time if you spec into that. Now, what I'm mostly concerned about here is I want to know how, if the blade damage is functioning properly, manipulate instability, if this is in fact ramping up my damage, because again, this spec right here was trying to maximize the melee damage output and have maximum poise damage reduction. This is for dueling. Crippling strike was for PvP specifically, a change. All right, we also went into recovery 3 out of 3, maximum health, and then prana bindu stability. Okay, so let's just go to prana bindu dodge.
For example, bindu dodge. It implies that as long as you are spice prescient right after a parry, you will then be immune to all blade and dart attacks. What it doesn't tell you is that immunity lasts for literally half a second. No one gives a fuck about that. But let's talk about the poison interactions here.
All right, so prana bindu stability gives you very brief. Now, this is 2 points, so we're already up here for weirding steps, so 2 points. I could see how if you get that parry off, you get half a second, it's might as well. That's not that bad. So poison tolerance. Now, poison tolerance, we'll watch what he has to say, but I only take 1 point in this because from what I understand from what he says is it's either or. You don't want to take the two in conjunction because they conflict with each other.
Before we move on to other stuff, because this is another scenario of things that are kind of jank in ways you probably wouldn't expect. And while it's not quite a bug, it is important to understand how these two function together, because you don't actually want this one. This one is a hard fucking pass. Let me explain why. When you get poisoned, you have to fill a bar. That bar starts at 100 for the total amount of poison that needs to fill before you are considered to be poisoned. This perk here, poison tolerance, makes it so it takes longer to poison you. What it doesn't say is instead of decreasing the rate at which you are poisoned, it just increases your poison bar. So now your poison bar goes from 100 to 145. That's useful if you didn't have this. The problem here is once you get metabolized poison as a perk, and this is really useful if you actually care about dealing with poison. If not, then you can skip this, keep that perk, and you'll do just fine. But using these together is a no-no, because what metabolized poison does is for every 7 poison buildup you accrue, it consumes 2 stamina to remove that 7 poison buildup. However,
So the more total poison buildup, the more stamina it's going to take out of you. Not too bad, but definitely not slotting an extra technique slot for that. So now let's see what else. Recovery and trauma. So this recovery, where you'll see that, is now when I heal. You see how my health goes above the normal threshold? So that's what I've understood recovery to be. So healing regen limit goes 120% above. All right.
That would be 20% plus 30%, meaning your regen limit is now increased by 50%. Say you have the base amount of health and you don't have this perk. That means your total health is 150. Normally, your regen limit is at exactly 33% of that, which would be 50. And then you do 50 times 1 point.
Yeah, so in standard PvP, I've been testing a lot for PvP. Usually you want to go, and this is a lot of the playing the FromSoft games in me. If I'm going against somebody with 150 health, and I've got 200, that gives me a slight advantage. So I'm max health, max stamina is just a no-brainer for me. I even want to. I'm thinking about slotting max power too. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to see what. So sun tolerance.
Separate. Sun tolerance does exactly what it says. It quite literally lets you stand out in the sun.
Yeah, and I'm gathering a lot. So when I gather, I have still suit, no combat gear, and then when I go out to combat, I have this full combat setup. Right. Now when I'm about to go gather and stuff, I put on the extractor or the compactor, weaker gear. If I get eaten by the worm, it's not that bad if I die. All right, so these are all just 1-pointer passive perks. Why not? Type of thing, because we have a few extra slotting. We're really trying to just maximize our survivability. Because this is in our. When I go out and spice farm, I have this slotted here. I have grapple hook, and then this. Right. So this is my spice farming setup like this, and it's just all, it's really hard to kill me. So when I'm out there, I can escape, So some of these are for that. Now for damage specific and dueling, this is the way I set it up. All right, now let's find out if manipulate instability works properly. Prana bindu stability. Right here. Now this was actually the original build using Prana bindu stability and Litany against fear, which I really love doing.
Damage to yourself. If I sit and take sword attacks from my friend, he can do a single sword attack and that will lightly stagger me. Or he can do 3 sword attacks, and after the 3rd sword attack, I will get heavily staggered. And my character will do a big ol' fat stumble. All my abilities are locked out in that time during any stagger regardless, but on the big stagger, you're locked out for a shit ton longer. This makes it so instead of taking 3 strikes to get full staggered, it takes 4 strikes, because a 20% reduction would be the 3 strikes divided by 0.8, which would be 1 minus the 20% here. That's how I'm getting 0.8. And then that gives me another strike before he full staggers me. When it comes to Litany against fear, this is a super cool ability. It does a lot. The armor multiplier does work exactly how it says. It does multiply your total armor times 3 for the entire duration, and it does work on your allies. If you are unfamiliar with how armor works or how it is calculated in conjunction with other damage reduction sources, please go watch the fucking armor video. It is extremely important.
So both these are working properly. That's good. In this build, I have passive 20 plus 9, so 29% poise damage reduction. So definitely good when you're in combat and try not to get staggered by people heavy attacking you. All right. So let's do Weirding Strike, because Weirding Strike is one of the primary abilities, and it has an interesting function where it stuns you the moment you press the button.
When you cast a compulsion on someone, it staggers everyone around as Iron Will. The person with Iron Will still get staggered. So this is one of 2 ways to bypass Iron Will. The second way is to use Weirding Step. Weirding Step is the literal definition of the teleports behind you, nothing personnel kid meme from back in the day. You literally just teleport behind your target. It's super jarring for the user, but while you do that, it does stun the target for the entire time that you're teleporting to them. Someone with Iron Will cannot subvert that stun when you're teleporting to them. But this is the only ability, besides the side effect of Screech, that can bypass Iron Will on the entire Bene Gesserit tree. Speaking of abilities, let's continue on with abilities before we get into blade damage, because blade damage ended up being really fucking complicated, and it threw me for a big-ass loop when I was trying to figure out how that math worked. First up on the rest of the abilities is Stop. It literally just stuns your target for the duration. They just sit there looking invisible. And then Prana Bindu strikes. Yet again, a stun. It does piss for damage. You can't rank it up at all. You will, at most, deal 4...
Where is...
Let's talk about poise damage. And between these, we will discuss Manipulate Instability, which says instability bonus damage, but really what that translates to is you're dealing bonus poise damage to enemies. It's
there it is. Manipulate
Instability
is poise damage.
I don't know. And that is for dealing poise damage to enemies. Then you have Prana Bindu Stability, which is for dealing with poise damage to yourself. If I sit and take sword attacks from my friend, he can do a single sword attack and that will lightly stagger me. Or he can do 3 sword attacks, and after the 3rd sword attack, I will get heavily staggered. And my...
So... all of this is confirmation for the build. So instability bonus is actually poise damage. And so we have high poise passive damage reduction and then high outgoing poise damage. So we're really trying to optimize all of the melee damage output that we can. Now, what he is going to get into next is blade damage. And I have spec'd long blade damage with all of the blade damage passives. The only one that I haven't spec'd is short blade damage. Now, from what he's saying, it almost sounds like speccing short blade damage will affect, although I don't know if it does affect. So short blade damage might not affect. So it's blade damage that affects. Let's find out. So I think, here we go. Blade damage. This is going to be good.
Now let's talk about blade stuff, because this is fucking weird. So I hadn't really done a whole lot with melee testing in the game yet, because I wanted to save it for Bene Gesserit and Swordmaster. Your weapons have a combo when you swing them. Just 1, 2, 3. It's just a quick animation. In other games, you're pretty used to having those other strikes within the combo do more damage. In this game, just going to quickly address, they do not. However, you do have heavy attacks and light attacks. Heavy attacks are the slow attacks that penetrate shields. They do a lot more damage. So we're going to talk about light attacks first, and then we will talk about heavy attacks after, because heavy attacks are what's super fucking weird. Blade damage says it gives you 9% increased blade damage. It doesn't specify which type of blade, be it long or short blades. Short blade damage does. Obviously, that goes 5, 10, 15% there. This only modifies short blades. Works exactly as you would expect if you...
Alright, so that means that since we're using long blade, this only affecting short blade, we would not spec that. Now the logic goes, where else can you get blade damage? Well, here and here and the long blade damage. So regardless of what his analysis is about to find for the amount of percentage it's affecting, it is affecting the blade that we're using, and so is this. Now I think what he's also going to discuss is how much it's affecting blade or short blade or long blade, because these probably are broken up into 2. But regardless, if you're set up for long blade, you'll want to have these 3, this and this. If you're set up for short blade, it'll be this one instead of that.
You have watched the Trooper video. We talked about how to calculate damage there. If you haven't watched the Trooper video, please go fucking watch that as we discuss how to calculate added damage from your bonuses. Blade damage, though, does not work quite as conveniently as short blade damage would. Blade damage adds 9% damage to short blades, and then 15% damage to long blades. So if anyone's ever tried to test that.
Okay, so that's even better. Now what might be happening too is over here, I wonder if it's modifying short blade damage in the opposite nature. Alright.
That out and saw a discrepancy there. That's why. So if we got both of these perks, my long blade would get 15% bonus from blade damage, and then my short blade would get 15% from short blade plus 9% from blade damage. Why they don't specify the difference in damage boosts between these two categories is unknown to me, and I kind of wish they'd add some UI clarity on this, because what the fuck? And to the inevitable person who wonders again, Does the blade damage stuff from Bene Gesserit combine with the blade damage stuff from Swordmaster? It does. Funnily enough, blade damage on Swordmaster works the exact same way. 15% is added to long swords, and 9% is added to short blades, despite it just saying blade damage. Anyways, back to Bene Gesserit. Now this is...
Okay. So, now let's check out the Swordmaster parts. Where is it?
Are you covered?
All right.
Their perks, abilities, and you've probably wondered which are worth taking, which are worthless, because we have already proven on numerous occasions now that there are quite a few perks that don't do anywhere near what you would have expected.
Okay, so we're using precise parry, prescient strike, so let's see. Now, his finding on inspiration was interesting because this actually is double the damage that you normally get.
Swordmaster definitely has some jank going on with it, and we're going to start off with some rather silly ones, like Inspiration, which is an ability that makes it so you scream really loud, and then you and your allies get increased damage for your attacks. However, the funny thing about this is it applies twice. It's giving yourself the 35% damage, but then it's also adding the AoE for your allies, and then it gives you another 35% damage. So this is not...
Alright, so... honestly... what that could mean is that, you know, in one of these flex spots, I mean, either knee charge or crippling strike, you could potentially slot inspiration, and then I think the maximum damage you could output is having this buff up, Dance of Blades, getting a manipulate instability stab with inspiration up. So if I really, really wanted to maximize that output, I could possibly slot this based on what he's finding, because this is double. I mean, now that's worth considering, right? Because this is 35%, so you get 70%. 70%. And this is only doing 20 and 20. So that's, now that, I believe, could be a bug.
Not a 35% melee damage buff. This is a 70% melee damage buff. Considerably better than a lot of you may have expected. How long that bug is going to remain in the game, who fucking knows? Let's talk about the next one.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily I mean, you could take advantage of that. I don't know if it's going to be something to rely on, because they'll probably correct that bonus. But still interesting.
Prescient Strike. It implies that basically as long as you are prescient after any ability, and it has to be a Swordmaster ability, by the way, I did confirm that. After any Swordmaster ability, you gain a couple seconds where... I hate the stupid sandstorm lady. Anyways, after any Swordmaster ability, you get a brief duration where you're supposedly going to deal 2 different attacks after you do a melee attack. While that's sort of correct, what it actually does is when you do an attack, it deals an extra instance of damage for 57.5% of the original damage. So basically just think of it as you would take whatever damage you deal and times it by 1.575. It doesn't deal an additional full strike, but it does deal an additional attack in general, just for way less damage. So this is still good.
Yeah, it's still good. Still extra damage going out. Absolutely. Let's take it.
Ish. If you are spending time prescient while doing melee, but it's not quite what a lot of you may have thought. Knee charge, I don't really feel the need to explain. You just punt your enemy's face with your knee. Optimized hydration. This is actually...
Alright, knee charge, confirmed good. We've got weirding step, even better than we thought it was with the stun on the way over. We confirm manipulate instability is poise damage. This is poise damage reduction functioning properly. So now all we need to confirm is crippling strike, and then precise parry, and then solid stance. And then our build should be validated by all of his analysis. And there might be some further optimization that I'm going to test after this with inspiration based on what he said. Alright, so let's go back. Let's just check what's left. Crippling strike.
Crippling strike just does a quick stun on an enemy, and then after they are hit for several seconds, it literally costs them twice as much to do a dash. And I checked, even with armor bonuses that reduce dash cost or multiply the dash cost if you spec into heavy. This does not work additively with your armor's benefits. This is a unique multiplier. It straight up just takes whatever your end dash cost is and multiplies it by 2. I actually completely forgot to talk about field medicine in the initial recording, so I'm just going to insert this little blurb in there. It does.
Okay, so good. That for 1v1s when you're in PvP, this is why I have this slotted. It's also one of the things too that's nice about it is no matter what's occurring, you know, in combat, the exchange, you could be in the middle of a stagger and that will instant attack. So that's one of the reasons why it's really good. It can combo when I'm using it. That's why I like it. And also, if you notice in PvP, what it boils down to is who loses stamina first when you zero it out, and now you can cue the heavy attacks in. Alright, so then the last, really, we got blade damage confirmed. So we just need solid stance and precise parry. Alright, solid stance.
Solid stance, I will honestly refer you to the Bene Gesserit video because we talk about how poise damage works. That said, this perk is useless by itself. If you only use that perk and nothing else when it comes to poise damage reduction, this won't even give you a single extra sword strike before you get heavy staggered. As such, hard pass on this, but if used in conjunction with other poise damage reduction sources, like say from the Bene Gesserit skill tree, this does become a...
Hey, alright. So... only use this if you also use this. Alright, cool. So he confirmed that. That's good. Alright. I was a
lot stronger,
little worried there.
Exponential scaling of reductions. Thrive on danger. This is really, really cool, but...
So thrive on danger, I slot that when I'm farming spice, and some of these rotate around, so that's a good confirmation.
Sort of not what I was hoping it would be. The first thing to address is the health regen delay. This takes the normal 20 seconds it would have taken you to begin healing yourself after being injured, and it brings it down to about 4.75 before healing can begin. That alone, in my opinion, typically makes this worthwhile. On top of that, it adds 200% to your base health regen, and if you've watched the Bene Gesserit video, we explain how health regen is calculated, the bonuses, all that shit. The health regen here only applies when you are under 33% of your health. So even if you increase your healing regen...
Yeah, and I mean, it's I would only slot this if it's like surviving. You know, you're gonna be pushing it, going in danger, taking heat, and you want to just make sure every last bit survives. That's the way I was imagining it, so when I'm in the spice farming. Alright, so let's look at precise parry. Here we go.
Parry. This does precisely what it says, and it does act as a new, unique multiplier to amplify the damage that people will take. So if you do a parry on someone, it's for about 5 seconds. After that, they will just straight up take 20% more damage as a multiplier against any incoming.
So multiplicative damage increase, then that's going to go in conjunction with this poise damage increase, and then this damage boost. So we have 3 coming in, and you know what we could do is slot inspiration and have that buff up, and then that's, I think, the maximum output modifier for melee. You have the parry go off, you're in spice mode, you've killed somebody, you've this buff up and inspiration up, and that should be, I mean, I don't know what you would go take that to and do, but that's really sort of pushing it. I was already kind of one-shotting the melees when the buffs were up with this setup. So, okay, so I think that's pretty much it, because for these abilities over here, this is just movement, getting around. This is obviously for the percentage, so reduced durability loss, same here. This is just purely for if I'm getting hassled by a Bene Gesserit too much, I'll slot this. So the utility is there, and I'm also going to maximize vehicle mining and vehicle repair here for convenience. And I was actually thinking of doing the conservation of energy maximum power so I could escape Shia-Lud better. Alright, so this is, and I'll just show the quick combat. If there's, I gotta pick up the bodies for my stills. Let's see. But the real quick test here. So let's see. So this weirding step now. He's stunned right when I go in. Yeah. And look at that instant attack that goes in right there. Easy. All right, give me those bodies. All right. Just doing a quick body haul. Should be good. I don't need that other body. Okay. So I would say overall, the build definitely validated by his findings. Pretty much everything that we slot has utility towards what he said was working. Some good alternatives too for these setups. I've been running through a bunch of different builds, testing out a lot of different stuff, finding out what I like. Really liked using Litany against Fear. I needed some more active moves when I was soloing in the labs, the hard labs. So, and if you haven't seen that, I'm going to be testing. I've been just trying to get better footage for the labs, but I've been getting, there's been a lot more people going into the labs, so it's clear when I get there, or there's PvP I have to deal with, and so it's hard to get just the PvP or the straight PvE experience. So I'm trying to get the footage, as best I can, and so I'll probably be going back in there tonight to try and get a little bit more, but I just wanted to see just some validation because Vash Cowaii did a lot of the great research, a lot of extensive testing, and so it was going to be nice to just see how that works. Now maybe one last thing, did he go over confidence? Here we go, reckless lunge and confidence. Let's find that.
And all you say, confidence is the one to spec into. It's basically just free DR when you're actively attacking people with slow blade attacks, which in general you are. That's a lot of.
So this sort of depends on how long that. There's that buff. Now for heavy attacks, when you do a heavy attack, it's really easy. If you get hit once, right? So now I have a damage reduction to that hit that's going to interrupt my heavy attack. So I definitely see a benefit. And actually, if there's one that I might take out to the max still, instead of some, and I'm going to get these up too, because I have 25 more points. I'm level 175. I have 25 more points I can spend. And I might go here, because that buff, it's just might damage reduce as it's coming in. And you do get interrupted in PvP a lot. Okay, so overall this is good news, good confirmation from his findings, and right now where it's at is, at least for me as a solo player in this game, I've built all the large refineries and stuff, and my next item that I'm going to try to make is this bad boy. And you can see how close I am. I'm still pretty far off. I need another, 600 plastanium and another 700 spice melange. But look at that bad boy. So I'm still not done. I'm playing solo. My brother and I, when we're playing solo separate, but we do group up every once in a while, mostly solo. So it's definitely possible to do this. Definitely escalated up all my infrastructure, so I've got plenty of water. I've got all of the major machines. I've got a great view. Just made the nice large ore refiner. Right here, this thing is huge. Look at this thing. So, all right. So I will continue to do a build test and for PvP and PvE, and I'll post my findings. The most current clear that I've done is the current setup that I'm using right here that I just did on the comparison analysis. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the builds, and I'm going to keep playing this game as long as I don't get harassed by hackers, because they've been around in DD speed hacking a little bit. So, all right, thank you.